Okay, great. Well, I'm super excited to be here on Wednesday, April 29th. It's about 6 weeks into quarantine with my new friend, Shannen Stewart, who was introduced to me by a mutual friend, Michelle Harbin, who I have also interviewed for my conversation series. And Shannen is the founder of a really great networking service for female event planners and anyone that really works in the event industry in Nashville. So we're going to talk today about how she's adapted the format of her organization and networking group to meet our self-quarantine times. So thank you for joining us, Shannen. And this is your first interview, correct? We were just talking
It
about that.
is.
So that's
Yeah.
exciting. All right, jumping off into the deep end, like you said, recording it. Um,
Yep.
well, great. Well, maybe you could give us a little bit of context between or behind how you founded your all-female networking organization in Nashville, and maybe a little bit about your background in the events industry and why you were so passionate about it. Because I was really impressed when I was looking over your website, and I know that you have well over 3,000 members, and I just would love to know a little bit about when it was an itty bitty sort of idea.
Yeah. No, well, thank you. It's crazy to think that it's been 7 years since I started Heels and Handshakes. And to be honest, I started it because I wanted friends. Just to kind of put that out there, I am a Nashville native. And in 2009, I moved to Orlando, Florida with my husband, and I didn't know anybody. And as a female, when you move to a new city, it's difficult. It's like, how do you make friends? You've already graduated, you moved to a new city, people already have their cliques or their groups. And so I found it really challenging to make girlfriends in this new city, Orlando. And it has nothing to do with Orlando, it could be any city. And so I found networking with other women that were in the hospitality industry. That's how I made my friends, because we had the same, common interest of being in the service industry. And that was just really my platform to connect with other women. At the time in 2009, I was working for a corporation, and that's actually how I met Michelle. We worked
Mhm.
together for the same corporation. And in 2009, one of my coworkers, she actually had started this women's happy hour group.
Mhm.
She called it the Ladies Happy Hour. And so she had started it. She moved to Miami, and I, was in Orlando, and I was going to her Ladies Happy Hours. Well, then in 2012, my husband and I moved back to Nashville. And even though I'm a native and, I have my girlfriends in Nashville, I was still missing something.
Sure.
A lot of my friends were either teachers or nurses, or they were just in another field. They weren't in the same industry that I was in. And that's something that I realized I missed in Orlando, was being able to have this community of other women that were in the same field. So they understood when, sometimes you just want to vent about something that's going on in your industry. And, my other girlfriends, as much as they were great listeners and they were there, it's just completely different when you have that industry of people that are in the same community. So we moved back to Nashville in 2012. And then in 2013, I launched Heels and Handshakes. And I thought it was a cute name. I love alliteration. And it really started out with about 10 of us. I joke that Michelle's an OG, she was one of the originals.
Sure, sure.
And
And these were all women that worked in not just events, but any sort of service industry, right? So I'm assuming you attracted kind of a similar personality type, which is most people in the service industry tend to be very social and kind of gregarious, really like meeting new people.
yeah, absolutely. And, I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's the service industry, but a lot of our members, they can be hoteliers. So if they work at a hotel, they could be a supplier like I was at the time. I worked as a vendor, meeting planners, destination management company. And to your point, we're all outgoing, but the main common factor is being in the service industry. You want to help others. That was the major component, is that we all wanted to help each other. And so that was where we found a lot of the community and the commonalities of, just forming this group, is that we all really wanted to help each other.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's talk a little bit about your normal meetings. So, how often you have them, where you usually have them, and again, I would love to know maybe a little bit about the dynamics of your group. I know that one of the main things that you offer is mentorship, but I also read a lot of really great testimonials on your
Oh, thank
website
you.
about women, saying, "Hey, I found my new job that I really love through this organization." So yeah, what's like a normal meeting like, when you can actually meet in person?
I know, I miss those days. So a normal meeting, it's crazy. When we first started, we'd have about 25 women, and now year 7, we sell out every meeting. So our attendance is around 75 to 80 women.
Mm,
And we have our events monthly. So every month we typically host it on a Thursday or a Wednesday.
mhm.
And I try to be respectful of all the other organizations. So, we don't have any calendar conflicts there. And then, we have different venues that will host us. So it could be a hotel, it could be a restaurant. Our last meeting was actually at Collective 615, which is a
Mhm.
women's co working space.
Yeah.
And we hosted our meeting there on March 5th in honor of International Women's Day, which was March 8th. So, we can go to any venue, any hotel, anyone that wants to host us. And I can honestly say every meeting, there's different faces. It's not the same women that attend.
Mhm.
We have a lot of first time members. In the registration, I have it listed asking, if this is your first time to attend a Heels event. And we will send out an email that says no before you go.
Mhm.
And we will just let the women know this is an open environment, no judgment. You don't have to wear heels to come to Heels and Handshakes. We make sure to let them know about parking or food, and then we introduce them and make sure they have that connection prior to a meeting. So, for example, in the know before you go, I'll have our director of membership will be copied to that email, and our director of new members, and then I will be copied with my cell phone. So I mean, I don't know about you, but it can be intimidating walking into a room full of all these women. And I never want anyone to feel that way. So I make sure prior to the meetings that we have that they at least have 3 numbers so they can reach out, whether it's email, they can text me. I've even offered to meet a new member and say, like, hey girl, I'll meet you in the parking lot. We'll walk in together and I can introduce you to people, because it can be a little overwhelming. But our main goal is to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and that they leave our meeting inspired and feeling like they made a new friend.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that you hear about people like myself who are kind of neurotic about not liking networking events, even though I'm someone that, considers myself to be a good conversationalist. I like more one-on-one. I'm not that kind of person that likes to walk into a room and,
Oh, no.
have to grab a drink and make a beeline and introduce myself to a complete and total stranger and give them like an elevator pitch. So I love that you kind of do a little bit of very, kind hand holding, I mean, not in a way that's like patronizing or anything, but I mean, just like thinking about how you would feel if you were in that situation.
I mean, I'm an extrovert and I still get sweaty palms walking into a room full of people that I don't know. And so I feel like it can be intimidating for anybody. One of the tips we try to encourage new members is, for us, and this is part of the growth too, it's really organic. We don't really go into our meetings like, so what do you do? And, how can I get your business? So in the know before you go, we'll put some questions, and it could be, just icebreakers, if you would. So one of the questions would be, if you weren't in this industry, what would you be doing? So that's like a really good question. Or, how did you get into this industry? Or, if it's the summertime, back when we could travel, do you have any summer plans? Are you going anywhere? So then you can talk about travel and just find that other person's interest instead of just going straight into, what do you do for business? How can I work with you? That's not what, I mean, that's not what Nashville is about. People really want true connections. And I think that's what has made Heels grow organically, is that it's the people and the community first.
Mhm.
And then once you really get to know those people, you're like, oh, I want to work with that person, because you've already formed, you've been able to cultivate that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that was my sense. I mean, and considering the fact that your organization started off because you wanted friends, I always think
Yeah.
how an organization or a company starts off is usually, hopefully, I mean, kind of the note that it ends on. If you do a good job of keeping your why, as they call it. I am curious, since obviously you can't hold your monthly in-person meetings at the moment, have looked over your social media. I know you're very much an engaged online community. Maybe we could talk a little bit about how you're keeping your community engaged during this time. And I would imagine, offering them some level of emotional support, since this is a difficult time for people who work in any sort of service industry.
Absolutely. I'll say this in the beginning, we started strong in our online community of having tasks and schedules because a lot of us are type A. We like to, we're goal oriented and we like to have tasks. And then I started talking to some of my members and I realized just because you have the time doesn't mean you have the capacity. Not everyone was in the same headspace of, I'm going to read this book, I'm going to listen to this podcast, I'm going to get this certification. Some people just needed to grieve, and some people are still grieving. And so, with the online forum, it's really a sounding board for members. Hey, checking in, send us a funny meme or send us a funny GIF, just really checking the pulse and not just making the assumption of, oh, you need to hear this today. A majority of our interaction is online. So with the private Facebook page and having the online platform, that's really how we started. And then we went into monthly events. But to answer your question, we're being there for each other's support system. So we're also encouraging our members every Wednesday, we call it a walk and talk. So we want our members to move your body, but then also while you're moving your body, if weather permits and you can walk outside, pick up the phone and call another member, or FaceTime, because that's what's
Mm,
really helping. And even a lot of my introverts are like, I didn't realize how much I needed to see another person. Like
yeah.
there's been these memes out there that are like, introverts are thriving during, COVID, because they're like, oh, this is what I'm used to.
It
But
was made
even
for them.
what?
It was made for them is like
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
assumption, which I don't think is true at all. I don't think this was made for anyone.
No, no, not at all. But it's like, talking with our introverts, they're like, I missed, having that FaceTime and that human interaction. So, we just encourage the walk and talks on Wednesday. We have something that I was just looking to see, it's just past 3. We have something called Thankful at 3 that we encourage our members to do, is to practice gratitude every day at 3.
Mm,
That helps with the mind space too, where you're not just focusing on worrying and being scared and the negativity and the anxiety that comes all along with that. So
sure.
we encourage, Thankful at 3. We do our walk and talks on Wednesday, and just really being a sounding board for our members. If someone just needs to vent, or if someone just wants to post a funny picture or a meme. So that's what we've really been doing to adapt with this.
Yeah, and I'm sure, I know this because I worked in restaurants for pretty much my entire writing career, to subsidize it in between projects. It is very strange to go from a job, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, where you're around people all the time, which, for me, I was always kind of 50-50 on it. Some days I loved it. Some days I was like, I need to be alone. But to nothing, and so I agree. I think having, like you said, the activity where you should call someone on this specific day. I don't know. I just think that's like a really great motivation to keep people engaged with other people, and especially those who can relate to what they're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one of our members said, oh, well, I know today's Wednesday because it's a walk and talk, like just even reminding people what day of the week it is. Because I don't know about you, in the beginning, it was just like Groundhog Day, like every day, like, oh, doing the
Sure.
same thing over and over again. And
Yeah.
then this is just a way to motivate members, but then also like, oh, this is what day of the week it is.
Yeah. Well, I would love to talk about something I saw on your website. You had a really great acronym. It was HEALS. And so you had, different principles that your organization follows. And, obviously, H stood for one word, E stood for another. But I love that you talked about mentorship And maybe we can talk a little bit about why that's important to you. Because, my whole interview series and career has been based around me being mentored by my interview subjects. So I'm someone who's really passionate about not only asking others for advice, but I think particularly right now, asking for help if you need it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've always been a big advocate that if you're not learning, you're not growing. And I always say that, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So it's like, I always want to learn. I always want to grow. And I remember the women that were there for me when I first started. And I also remember the women that were not there for me when I first started in this industry. And so with that, it was really important for me to be able to facilitate mentorship within Heels, because I wanted to pay it forward. I can't be a mentor to all of the members. I'm only one person, but also there's so many members that are seasoned in the hospitality industry with 20 plus years. And then we have our members that are green and they just graduated and they're trying to get their feet wet into the industry. And so that is just a perfect match to be able to have this organization, Heels and Handshakes, and have the women that are seasoned and the women that are just starting out, to have them collaborate and connect them with a great mentor. And, the beautiful thing about it is that a lot of our members, even if you're not seasoned, even the younger ones can teach our seasoned members something too. We can all learn from each other.
Sure.
So that's been a new initiative for Heels. We started that it's probably been about 2 years, is really trying to connect the women to start having this mentorship where they're able to help each other out, whether it's, in their professional career or even personally too.
Yeah, plus I think it underscores another one of your principles, which is a non-cutthroat environment that you foster, which I love. And I speak pretty often at colleges, and I always talk about how grateful I am that the writing environments I was always in were very collaborative and supportive. And I always try to, foster that kind of environment when I'm working on projects. So I think mentorship, that's like the cornerstone of fostering a collaborative environment.
Absolutely. And I'll say, when I worked for the corporation from 2009 to 2017, I traveled a lot, and I realized in other cities, not everybody is as collaborative here in Nashville, like they are in other cities. There was one city in particular, which I won't call out, but I felt like it was adult high school. It was really, really, really cutthroat. And the thing I loved about Nashville, one of my friends, Jackie Marco, actually put together this term. She calls it co-opetition. So you can be competitors, but you work together. And so I loved how Nashville was really embraced co-opetition, working together and not being cutthroat. And so that was one of the pillars of Heels. I was like, we are all women-based, and I want this to be collaborative. I want it to be positive, and it has to stay this way. And I had to lay down that those are values. And if you are not supporting another woman, if there's any negativity, especially with the online platform, you might see some bullying or some negative comments, but not in our group. There's zero tolerance for it.
That's wonderful. Well, I just have one last question for you, and then I would love to keep talking further after I start recording. But right now is obviously, as we both know, because we've both worked in the service industry, and I also have a lot of friends who do a really tough time for people that love being around people and, are more extroverted, and they get energetically charged through, their social interactions. What advice would you have for other just people in general for how to keep your spirits up right now? The fact that you are in social isolation and you can't be in this service industry that you love, serving others.
I'd have to say it just has to be, I would encourage the FaceTiming or calling and talking to people, especially if that's how you get your energy. What is it? The extroverted introverts, or I think I might have that backwards, where it's you're an introverted extrovert. You get your energy from being around other people.
Yeah.
For folks that are like that, I would recommend FaceTiming, calling people. We actually, with Heels, we have an initiative called Heels Off. So we recommend for our members to get together like on the weekends. This was obviously before COVID-19, but with Heels Off, they would meet and get together outside of the industry on the weekend. And now during this epidemic, we are encouraging our members to do, there's an app called House Party. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you, okay.
I'm
So
familiar with it. I haven't actually used it yet.
Lily, you got to download it. You got to get on it. So fun.
Done.
So with House Party, you can FaceTime. So I think you can go up to 8 people. So you get that interaction.
Sure.
And then you also get to play games. And so that's been really, really cool for our members during this time. And that's maybe not, you're not servicing others, but maybe you are, because maybe when you're on that FaceTime app, somebody might have had a really horrible day and they might have been really alone and just had a bad day. But you asking them to get on this app and play a game can, change their whole mindset. They could have been in a dark place of isolation and it could have been paralyzing. But the fact that you asked them to join this Heels Off and do this house party. And so on the app, there's an icon, a feature, and you can play games. So you can play the heads up game that like Ellen does. They even have a game that's similar to Cards Against Humanity. I don't know if you've ever played that game. Don't play with in-laws. That's awkward.
Super rocks.
Yeah. But there's all these fun games that's embedded in the app. And so that's what we've been encouraging our members to do, that just, they want that social interaction, and it's fun because you feel like you're there with them playing the games, but even though you're not, because it's on the phone. But that's been a tip that we've done. And then for our members that maybe, they're not FaceTiming or they're not getting together, we're asking them to write down your thoughts. Reach out to another member, and they might need content. So you might be able to write a blog post for them, or maybe you can proofread if they're working on a new website. One of our members, Shannen, with DCM Communications, says when you can't work in the business, work on the business. So, or I think I had that backwards, sorry. But basically she's trying to say when you can't really work the day to day, that's when you take this time to work on your business, work on your website, work on your reviews, your LinkedIn. And so we've been encouraging our members to take that time if they're in the right headspace.
Sure.
Give grace if they're not, because once again, just because you have the time doesn't mean you have the capacity. But that's just something to kind of keep the members motivated and, give them something to look forward to.
I think it's great. Well, and I think every bit counts now, like you said, even just playing games together, is an act of service. So you did great. I'm honored to be a part of your first interview, and thank you very much for joining us today. It was lovely to meet you.
Thank you for asking me.